Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Officially another game week, Dan, and then we get a bye week. But Western Michigan this week, but we're back. Thanks, everybody that caught our live show. I know there's a lot of them out there, so appreciate all your comments and everything. So, Dan, got a W on Saturday. How you feeling after a rewatch?
I feel good, It's a W is W. It's 52-6. I think it's really interesting when you look at, some other games from around the country and other schools that were playing cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
We seem to have run the most vanilla offense out of all of them, and on defense for that matter. I mean, we were in our base defense for the majority of the game. I know he dialed up a few blitzes here and there, and, you saw Caleb Downs coming in and Latham and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, very vanilla. I think if we had opened up our downfield passing attack, we would have hung 80 on them easy. But it seemed to me like Chip wanted to get certain things on film.
He was setting stuff up. You could tell.
Well, not necessarily setting stuff up, but yes. But he wanted to just get some things on film to see, what it looked like so that they could then coach them up in the film room. For example, the second play of the game that JJ dropped, they never came back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it was perfectly executed and there was no reason to, right? He could coach that up on film and say, hey, this was perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what the goal was in that game, was to get as many people on the field, as many reps as possible, and to just get as many looks on film as possible so they could coach it up in the film room.
I'm with you. I think it was I like the win. I'm happy with the win. No complaints here. I originally kind of subscribed to the idea that maybe they'd hit 70. But again, and thankfully for Akron, they didn't. Like I said, I have a special place in my heart for Akron. So but okay. All right. So just wanted to remind you guys, if you could please go ahead and subscribe. We are over the 420 mark. So we've extended our Blitz to 500 till the Marshall game. So to try to give everybody time, we might have set a little bit of a lofty goal. So we're trying to get to 500 subscribers. Even if we don't, we're gonna give away the gift card to one of the people that have already subscribed, and thank you very much for all of your support so far. If you're wondering what's up with me, I have some sort of kitty cold. School's back in session, so definitely a little under the weather. But so Dan, a couple things related to recruiting that kind of popped off after I sent you show notes, and I want to get your take. The first is Jahkeem Stewart said he has two, not one, but two big announcements coming this week. Any guess on what those are?
I think he's going to formally announce that he's reclassifying, and then I can see him dropping maybe a top 3 or 4, maybe a 5. That's kind of what I'm expecting.
I thought maybe it'd be a commitment date. I thought maybe he would announce he's reclassifying and then a commitment date.
Maybe his top whatever with a commitment date.
Yeah,
I think would be good. Hey, regarding subscriptions, folks, just so you know, like when you're watching our video, sometimes you don't see the subscribe button if you've got the chat up. So if you just click on that little X to close the chat, then you can find our channel name and click the subscribe button. I think a lot of folks might not know how to find it, quite honestly. So, yeah, if you can do that, that would really help us out a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate everybody's support, too. Like, everybody's been so kind. I think that's the cool thing about this is, like, we're all Buckeyes, we're all Buckeye fans, and the people that support us and chat us and leave comments and everything. And everybody's been behind us. And so I think that's one of the coolest parts of this whole thing that we're doing, Dan. And then over the weekend, Saturday night,
there's a few knuckleheads out there.
Yeah, well, I try to stay positive. I'm Mr. Positivity.
I know.
So yeah, I know. I know you know. Much to your Jaden Ballard dismay.
If there was a big Brutus doll here, you'd be on one shoulder and I'd be on the other.
yeah, pretty much. So Saturday after the game, Phillip Bell, the 4-star wide receiver out of Mission Viejo, commits to Ohio State, 6'2", 195. Transferred into Mission Viejo as a junior last year, so that was his first year with them. He went 56 for 644 and 7 tutties. One of the interesting notes I saw, Dan, he has 11.83 meter dash, so he can move a little bit.
11.83 or 10.83?
No, 11.83.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not great.
A lot of comparisons I get I've seen for him is and it's always recency bias, but Roman Odunze.
That's a good one.
Who played for Washington last year. So good size, good speed, great route runner, really good hands.
He's more quick than fast.
Yeah.
That's he runs great routes, very clean, but I'd say he's more quick than fast. If I was gonna, does a good job with rack, or yak yards after catch. Cool. I'm excited about him. I like adding him to the class. A big body. He bodies the little smaller DBs. So he's long. I like it. I like the addition. He's a prototypical Brian Hartline receiver. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Hartline has a type.
He does, man. He does. He definitely has a type. So kind of what we learned from the Akron game, Dan, I wanted to do something fun. I'm going to make a statement. You tell me if you agree or disagree and why. And, we'll pretend we're on one side or the other of the Brutus. But number one, Burke is that dude.
Absolutely. Arguably the most underrated and under talked about corner in the country.
Fair enough. He played well too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hicks still not ready.
No, and all those guys out there that hate on whoever for not having him on the field, I think it can be argued that he's just playing out of position. Like I can totally see right now him getting into the NFL and having a Browning type of a outbreak because they'll have him coming off the edge and just, see quarterback, get quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just not what our defense is set up to do. So
yeah.
I don't think he trusts himself yet, is what I saw in the game. He seems a little slow and he's not trusting himself just yet.
Okay. So your comp would be more like what we weren't able to do with Baron Browning when he was here, but he's able to do in Denver. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. I don't, his skill set is not going to be, highlighted in this defense.
Yeah. Okay. Arvell Reese should start if Cody can't go again, but start in the will position.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I would put him in the middle. And I would let Sonny get over to Will, which is where he's going to play when Cody's back. I think what we saw, I think it's been universally accepted that defensively our linebackers left the most to be desired. But, perspective is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sonny's transitioned to linebacker for the first time in his career, and he's repped almost exclusively at Will.
Mm-hmm.
So this injury to Cody came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. He gets thrown into the middle and wears the green dot. It was a recipe for inconsistency. And I think that's what we saw on Saturday. So if Cody's out again, I would put Arvell in the middle because that's what he's been repping at. He's at least repped there more than Sonny. And I would put Sonny back at Will, which is where he's going to play, and let him start getting reps at his position.
Okay. Can I just say how much I hate Ryan Day's posture on injury and availability, by the way?
So many people complaining about that.
I'm so tired of it.
Here's what it is. It's an NHL mentality, right? The NHL a few years back went to upper body and lower body injury when it came to disclosing. And they have to disclose something because of Vegas.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that Vegas has a say in the way professional sports teams announce their injuries, but they do. In college, that's not the case as of yet. So Ryan, he doesn't want, it's that mentality that you just don't want people to know where somebody's hurt so that they don't target it. Right. Look at Cody, we know at this point that he had a bunch of shoulder injuries, but if it got out that he And I'm not saying what he's got because I honestly have no clue. It's the best kept secret in America right now as to why Cody Simon didn't play the other day. I mean, the people that I know who, kind of told me about Donovan Jackson's hamstring, which you still haven't really heard
No,
publicly.
we
they had no idea that.
scenes.
Yeah, they had no idea Cody wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So I mean, just think about it. If he's got sore ribs, if I'm the other team, I'm going after his ribs.
Yep.
So I get it. I understand why it's frustrating for some folks, but it is what it is. Ryan's gonna be Ryan.
Ryan's gonna Ryan. All right. So Mitch Melton needs more snaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think he flashed. He's finally healthy, and I think what we saw on Saturday was somebody with a boatload of potential.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Mitch Melton train, and I'm not going back. So, all right. Lathan Ransom, way underrated.
Absolutely, unequivocally, and he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he more or less said so in the post game presser that, or maybe it was leading up to the game where it was leading up to the game where he said that he just kind of feels like he's forgotten. I can confidently say right now, even with Honda McCord at quarterback last year, I think we beat Michigan if Lathan played.
Fair enough. Well, that one throw that went behind the ear of Hooker
because of that one play. Yep.
Yeah. This is a question for you. Where was Ty Hamilton? I didn't hear his name at all.
He was at defensive tackle.
And apparently,
he's just workman, man. He just brings his lunch pail and does his job.
All right, man.
I mean, listen,
I don't know.
You weren't gonna. I don't think you were gonna hear him a lot. I mean, I don't know if this is on the list or not, but I mean, they were getting rid of the ball and as quick as they humanly could.
Oh yeah.
And our ends were getting in there just with a normal pass rush. I mean, Jack Sawyer. I thought somebody was gonna call the authorities on him.
Yeah, he was abusing. Akron's Finley. So, I should have grabbed it. That spin move that Kenyatta Jackson put on their left tackle, though. Oh my goodness, man!
Yeah.
He left him like the tackle's just standing there, looking like, where did he go? Yeah. All right. Iggy will be a problem for offenses.
Yeah, our secondary is elite.
Yeah. Jermaine Matthews needs to be on the field a lot more.
I don't have the snap counts in front of me. My brother sent them to me earlier. I had seen him prior to that as well, but I forgot to pull them up. Do you have them in front of you?
I think I do. Let me grab them.
I mean, he definitely did not play as much as I thought he would.
Yeah, I thought he would as well. I thought I saved it. Oh, we'll keep going. Let's see. Gabe Powers is much improved.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he didn't get that pick six, would I have noticed him? Probably not, but it was the end of the game.
Okay.
I've got to go back and watch it again and look at specific things like that.
Yeah, so the snap counts I did have were for the O-line, which we can talk about in a minute. But one thing, so there were 32 different players that played on defense against Akron, which is a nice rotation. That goes right into what I was going to say. Keep rotating on the D-line. And I thought Kenyatta Jackson actually showed up.
Yeah.
All right. Offensively, Dan, you touched on Donovan Jackson. So
I mean, Jermaine had 19 play. He played 19 snaps.
Okay. All right. That's a decent amount. I'll take it. A lot of people were asking about Donovan Jackson. So I actually even got into a dispute like in one of those chat groups on Twitter with a guy that said that Donnie should play this week. And I just question why. Like, why would you do that? Haven't we learned enough from Jackson Smith and Jigba? Like, you don't mess with a hamstring. It's a bye week next week. We aren't going to need him against Western Michigan. But what are you hearing, Dan? I think you told me that he warmed up for the Akron game.
He warmed up, and I heard he tried to fist fight a couple coaches about not playing.
Okay.
He warmed up. He was dressed for the game. Cody was dressed for the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just precautionary. I mean, it was. Yeah. Listen, you got that NFL flavor with Chip and with Ryan, and they're treating these games for what they are, which are preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do think the starting offensive line stayed in a lot longer than I would have thought, but I think a lot of that had to do with depth, and then also that they just looked like crap in the first half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They wanted to get as much on film as possible.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Okay. All right. So pull this up. So I caught this little nugget, so let's just watch this. Right. So who in God's name is Carson Hinsman blocking?
Well, it's both. It's
What is
both. Who's the
happening
other?
here?
Is it? It's Hinsman and then
Saraveld.
Saraveld's also in on that play too. Right?
Yeah, so Hinsman needs
it's
to pick the linebacker up here. Tate's responsibility is the second level.
Yeah, they both. And listen, there are plenty of examples of them with good plays on tape, but like I don't understand. It's like that was almost a decision not to hit that guy. You know,
yeah.
There were a lot of examples of this. G. Scott had 2 or 3 plays where he just looked completely disinterested in blocking. I got absolutely lit up in the spaces during halftime about me telling everybody they had rose-colored glasses on about the offensive line in the first half. And I'm sorry, but I feel vindicated after watching. And the reports that we're getting is that the film session for the offensive line was not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were getting lit up. Players were getting lit up. Coaches were getting lit up. Now, with all of that being said, it's the first game of the year.
Yeah.
It's Austin Saraveld's first career start. It's Seth's first start at the shoe. It's Tegra's first career start, as far as I know. Mm. You know, Carson had been out more than anybody through spring or through fall with that virus. You know, there's a lot of excuses to be made, but none of them are acceptable in my opinion. I mean, that play right there, that's just a want to play, right?
Yeah.
That's a no talent play. You're pulling and you're supposed to hit the first different color jersey that you find upfield.
Yeah.
And they both ran by people. Hinsman looked as if he made a decision not to hit the guy.
Well, what I was trying to figure out too, Dan, for my own, like just for my own understanding, is like that's simple pin and pull. Like that's all that is. Like your job is to hit the guy that's in front of you. There's no other. Like Carnell going to the second level is what he was supposed to do. Saraveld just whiffed on his block. I don't want to dog on him too much, you know, but like because that's one play. You know,
yeah.
But it's still
and listen, the exact same pin and pull technique, Zach Smith on his breakdown. Listen, I'm not going to get into controversies because we know Zach is a controversial person for whatever reason, but his film breakdown is next level.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn about football and actually see who did what and who didn't do what, watch it's like $25 a month. And I get nothing out of this. He won't even know that I said this. But get the film breakdown. It is next level. He's got a teacher's approach to it. You really learn a lot, and he's breaking down like a game a day. It's not just Ohio State, but he showed an example of the exact same technique, the pin and pull scheme, and it was executed perfectly by the same people. So I don't know. Was it a communication thing early on? I who knows? Maybe Akron, you know, another thing you need to keep in mind with these early games against these teams that aren't very good is that they're out of position.
Yeah.
Right? The defense is out of position. Like they're not where they're supposed to be. So it throws off the offense because they're used to repping against the top level defense. That's always where they're supposed to be. And it's kind of like, hey, what's going on? Like, why isn't that guy where he's supposed to be? You know, type of thing. So I don't know. Yeah. First game of the year.
Okay. It is the first game of the year. All right. So staying with the offensive line and offensive production, let's take a look at this, Dan. I think everybody knows what this is. Bam! Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. I mean, my goodness, Travion Henderson just out and out lays this dude out. I mean, my goodness, that's how you pick up the blitz, folks.
Yeah, he was pretty pumped too. That will be his.
And I love Jelani Thurman here too, like just holding him on.
He's telling the guys like, dude, just stay down, just stay down,
just stay down. Just don't get up, don't get up.
Yes, I know you
That's
know.
how you pick up the blitz.
I know you've seen him loving Jesus, but he's still violent.
Yeah. So I do think that you're right, Dan. First game of the year, I think things get back to normal. We talked a little bit about the reps. So I had Saraveld played all 66 snaps on offense on the offensive line, Fryer 62 and McLaughlin 62. So there were a total of 66 snaps, and Saraveld played every one of them, and the other guys played.
Those last few series of the game when they switched out the skill players, they kept in the ones for the most part.
Line,
because they, we were already starting backups.
Yeah,
and we needed the reps.
All right. So this next segment, I would like to just say that I think G. Scott is a really great human being. And that this in no way reflects who I think he is as a person, but he just isn't getting it at tight end as far as the blocking piece goes. And I'm over it. I'm over the experiment. Just put Kazmarek and Thurman in.
Yeah, Kazmarek missed some of his, he had his fair share of missed assignments the other day too, but he also had some that I saw where on that particular play I talked about with Zach Smith on the pin and pull.
Yeah.
He got the backside linebacker and just stood him up, just face mask to face mask. It was beautiful. But yeah, I don't know what it is with G, man. I mean, the eye in the sky does not lie.
Mm-hmm.
And he just seems disinterested. It's like, there's one play where he literally, it looked like he was avoiding contact, like physically avoiding the contact, as if he was playing tag in his backyard and he was trying to prevent the guy from touching him. It was bizarre. Okay. I don't understand it.
It was unusual. Some of it was unusual. I really don't know what to think, and it's baffling to me because even Ryan Day had talked about Patrick Gurd, and I've always viewed Patrick Gurd as more of like the Mitch Rossi type guy, like a fullback H-back kind of guy, not really not a true tight end. And then we didn't really even see Gurd in the game very much. So that told me everything I needed to know. But if we're going to go this is why I brought this up. If let's just run it out there with Kazmarek and Thurman. If you're gonna, work with G. Scott, that's fine. But let's work with Kazmarek and Thurman because they're true, honest to goodness tight ends. Like let's do that.
Listen. G's got really good hands.
Mm-hmm.
Really good hands. No, use them that way. But here's the problem is that when you split them out, and it was the exact same thing that we saw in the Missouri game that was just mind-blowing to me. We saw it again the other day. Where he's really bad is in space. And when he's got to stock block somebody, he's horrible. His angles are horrible, and he seems disinterested.
Yeah.
He's a little bit better when he's close to the line of scrimmage and the contact is unavoidable. But and I know, you know what, man, we have a few listeners that are just going to absolutely hammer us for beating up on the O-line. It's first game of the year, and we had backups starting and everything else like this. But there's when a player gets graded on a play, they get graded on their assignment and they get graded on their effort.
Yep.
And I saw the things that were concerning to me were the effort things on some of these plays.
Yeah. I think I texted it to you and Jack that I know I did because you asked me how it was going, and I said I think that they were sleepwalking into this because they knew that the talent didn't equate, and that they didn't have to come out with their best effort, and they were gonna walk to a win, which fine, okay, but it sets the Ryan Day's teams notoriously start slow, and it just felt like another one of Ryan Day's slow starts.
Yeah. Well, and again, Ryan Day pisses off more people after a 40-point win than any other coach in America.
Yeah, we are the most spoiled fan base in America. I feel like, man.
But
Gosh, I
let's just
know, I feel it.
yeah, let's just put it this way. I'm going to be watching closely at some of the effort stuff, some of the no talent stuff on the offensive
Yeah,
line this coming week. Because
yeah.
Josh Fryer, we didn't even talk about him. I mean, there were just mind blowing things that I saw in film. Not saying it was all bad,
No, he played pretty well.
and there were, and I've already said, listen, sometimes when the other team's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, it makes it harder to do what you're supposed to do. But you need to separate that from the effort and the want to type things, right?
There was one particular play on. I need to figure out how to get my DVR off of my YouTube TV to like show, but there was one where Fryer cracked down, Tegra cracked down. The run was to the right. It was a pitch to Travion Henderson, and then I think I was trying to remember. Seth pulled and somebody else pulled, and it was like a 20-yard gain. And that play looked like if they could do that every time, that looked great. Like Fryer just bulldozed the defensive end and pushed him out. Like I could have ran through that hole.
Yeah.
Not well, but I could have because I would have had to plant on my left leg. But it looked good to me. And I rewatched it several times on record, and I thought there were some nice plays that know, and weirdly, and this is maybe it's just me, but I felt like they blocked better when Trey was back there, and I don't know if it's that Trey, he's a little quicker in the hole, and he gets skinnier in the hole a little bit differently than Q, and there's probably just different running styles. But I also thought like Q was a little bit hesitant, maybe like he had a little slight hesitation.
I think Ryan alluded to that, and Ryan made a really good point. And again, it's not excuses. And, I do think it would have looked different if we were playing a legit team this first week. But, there are a lot of guys on this team were playing their first game in the shoe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sure. And these are still 19, 20, 21-year-old kids.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I do think Q was probably a little hesitant on some of his stuff.
Mistake, yeah.
He did seem to be the recipient of probably lesser blocking than Trey was, but Trey was more decisive, and Trey was a lot quicker to the hole. So that's going to help the result.
Yeah, I saw a different Travion Henderson this week than I've seen. That's the Travion Henderson that we saw in the first half against Notre Dame last year. I need that Travion Henderson every game.
Yeah, and people just need to get like their numbers are not going to be outrageous these first few weeks. Like their word is that they're on a pitch count. If you're probably not going to see them north of 11, 12, 13 carries each.
Yeah,
these first few weeks, you just not.
If you didn't catch our live show on Saturday, guys, we talked about James Peoples getting in the game. So his first touch goes for a touchdown. He looks like he belongs, and then he gets smacked. I mean, absolutely smacked. I can't believe they didn't call targeting, honestly, in the head where he was stood up, and the ball came out. He landed back on it, but he came over to the sideline. I'll tell you what, man, Coach Locke, I would not want to be the person that was there having that conversation. He was big mad. Yeah, he landed on the ball.
And here's the thing about Coach Locke that makes it even worse, right? Is the guy doesn't cuss.
No.
So, there's a lot of coaches that will probably be doing, F-bombing the hell out of them. And it's kind of like in those situations and almost goes in one ear and out the other because you're kind of wondering like, okay, who's he trying to impress? But,
right.
When you got a coach blowing you up without cussing, it makes it even worse.
Yeah.
And more impactful, to be honest.
Yeah. Most of you watch the show long enough to know that I don't do a lot of that. So I can understand.
You hear every word rather than just the F-bombs.
Yeah.
It's way more impactful.
Yeah, he came off the field and Sam Williams-Dixon was in there in a hurry. And I mean, that was a shot too. He took a shot. That wasn't like just some namby-pamby thing, but all right. So Dan, I am ready to admit something to you.
Uh-oh.
And it's gonna hurt me deep inside of my Maslin heart. Jaden Ballard has no business fair catching kicks, or maybe even really returning kicks at this point. I don't know why he did not let that ball go out of bounds, and why he fair caught it. I mean, it still came out to the 25, but it's still 10 yards difference.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got no problem with a fair catch on kicks if they're doing sky kicks and they're trying to pin them and get them to make a mistake.
Yeah,
fair catch the ball, take it at the 25. Different because that's a live ball, right? You can't let it hit the ground, and hope that it bounces into the end zone. But yeah, that sideline one, man. You
mean like they did on Saturday when Ballard waved everybody off and it landed at the 2 and thankfully landed in the end zone?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else caught that. Nobody else talked about it, but man, I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Anyway,
he the sideline fair catch.
Yeah. I don't want to rip on a kid, man, but I was just like, oh my goodness, man, and at first game again, and I don't ever remember him returning kicks for Ohio State. But I hope it gets better. That first kick, man, I thought he was going to break it, honestly, because I predicted that he would take a tutty back in this game on a kick return, but it didn't happen.
Well,
and then
and that's why I'm not opposed to having him back on the kicks. Like I said, I said absolutely unequivocally no way on punts.
Yeah.
But on the kickoff thing, you figure you thought there weren't that many things he could screw up, but he catches that ball and his straight line speed makes him a threat. And I'm sure that's the thinking.
I don't disagree with that at all. So liked a lot Brandon Ennis back on the punts. He made a couple plays that, like, to him, for like to a regular viewer just watching football, you're like, oh, that didn't look that hard. But like, he was sprinting one way to go catch a ball that went over his head, and then turned around and ended up making a gain out of it. We touched on that on Saturday. But I do like Brandon Ennis back there. I think you nailed it from when you were on campus those 4 days that Ennis is he's assumed that role, and I think he needs to stay in that role.
Well,
and I don't want anybody else back there.
Perspective, right? One of my favorite words.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people saw this quote. I reposted it on Twitter. So these are the punt return yardage totals for the last 3 seasons. Did you see this?
Okay. I think you sent it to me.
Punt return totals, meaning every time they attempted to return a punt. So fair catches don't count, anything else like that, obviously. But in 2021, on 23 returns, we had 132 return yards for the season. For the season. That's 10 yards per game.
Yeah, that's not good.
In 2022, production went up. We had 141 yards on 17 returns. Okay.
And we had a special teams coordinator then, right?
And in 23, last year, we had 75 punt return yards on 17 returns. 75 punt return yards on the season. Brandon Ennis had 4 punt returns for 60 yards on Saturday. I mean, he's gonna break 2 or 3 this year. I'm no longer on the one return touchdown. Okay. He's really, really, really good at that.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And then one of the weird things that came out of Saturday, Dan, is on game week prep, it was announced that Nick McLarty would be the starting punter for the Akron game. Then he proceeded to have a really terrible week of practice, and so they went with Joe McGuire. When they brought McGuire, I was like, that does not look like a 6'7" dude. And but I thought McGuire punted well. I didn't have any problem with what he did. I mean, for what it was, it wasn't 70 yards in the air, but it sounded like to me a little bit of the freshman jitters for Nick McLarty headed into his first home game in the shoe in practice after being named the starter.
Yeah, you know what? To be honest with you, I was surprised when Ryan said McLarty was going to get the start because I knew that he had been really inconsistent the first week or 2 of practice. So that surprised me. And then obviously everybody was like, wait a minute. And to Ryan's credit, he addressed it head on. He's like, listen, Nick he didn't have a good week of practice. Joe did a better job and So we went with him. You know, a lot of people who are cynical would say, gee, you know, maybe you should have had that approach with other positions in the past.
Perhaps. All right, I saved the best for last, Dan, only because I feel like I needed to save it for last. The Will Howard thing. I thought Will Howard played well. I thought he looked like he was in command of the offense. I thought to myself on a couple of the plays where he could have went down or would have got sacked. McCord would have been sacked last year. The run that he broke where he was rolling to his right and then pulled it down and picked up 15, 17 yards. He looked athletic. He looked like he had done it 100 times, which he probably has. And on the one QB power they ran, so I owe all of our fans an apology. They actually ran a QB power. I didn't think we would. I didn't even think it was in the arsenal. So I owe you guys an apology. And I owe Will Howard an apology because he definitely looked in command of the offense. I thought he might come out a little bit iffy, just his first game in the shoe, but he looked like a veteran quarterback who has seen it, been there, done that.
Yeah,
has 7 T-shirts.
I thought Will was a highlight of the game. His poise in the pocket is beyond noticeable compared to last year. To your point, I think there would have been 3 to 4, if not more, sacks and or intentional groundings if that was Kyle back there.
Yeah.
Ironically, you know, Will Howard only had 7 scrambles all of last year. Like, he's not a scrambling quarterback. So I think we saw at least 2 where he took off, you know, on a called pass play and took off and ran.
Yep.
So, you know, I can't help but to think that that's been a topic of conversation. Like, if you can do it, do it. He really only had one, you know, whiskey tango foxtrot moment.
Yeah.
And it was that, you know, backward lateral to Trey trying to make something happen. But I can't think of a single throw where you're, you know, I was like, what in the hell was that? I'm trying to get somebody to clip up all of his pass attempts to go back and watch it, though. But I mean, he was 17 of 28. You got a
3 drops
perspective, right? He started out 0-4, and then he had an 0-5 stretch, right? The 0-4 stretch to start the game, there were at least 2, if not 3 drops in there. 2 for sure, Carnell, and then obviously JJ's. All of those incompletions were on the money and catchable balls. You know,
the one to Will Kazmarek, people kind of highlighted that. Like, he put it where either Will was going to get it or nobody was.
Yeah, I mean, that was
down around.
Is that the one where they're saying it was thrown away?
Yeah, it was high and to the outside towards the sideline. So either Will was going to get it or nobody was going to get it.
That was a good pass.
Yeah.
It was a good pass.
I'll take that every time rather than putting it in the breadbasket of somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly was not, you know, DJ Uyunglele from last night.
Oh, my gosh, man.
At the end of the first half.
Bad for that kid. Man, I feel so bad for him.
Holy cow. You talk about a season taking a dump.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go. Wow.
I just feel bad for him, like, as an individual.
I'm talking about Florida State. Yeah. I mean, here's the crazy thing. I saw a lot of people post that Florida State's eliminated from the playoffs.
They could win out.
I mean, all they got to do is win the ACC, and not only are they still in it, but they're a top 4 seed. You know, yeah. I mean, they've got 1 loss in conference. No, wait a minute. You know what? I'm an idiot. They're both their losses are conference losses, aren't they? Yeah.
BC's in the conference,
and Georgia Tech.
Well, Georgia Tech's in the ACC. Yeah.
I mean, they could, you know, you can still make an argument that if they win out, they could end up in the championship game because all they would need is, they would need Georgia Tech and BC to both finish with 3 losses. It's going to be really hard. Technically, though, my point is valid. If they win the ACC, despite this start, they're still in. Now, winning the ACC is going to be a little tougher than I first thought that, you know, when I was commenting this morning.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought Will Howard had 18 rushing yards is what I was looking at. Yeah, so I thought, man, he played well. I didn't have any problem with what he did. Devin Brown came in, got a few reps. Probably tough to come in cold like that. they did let him throw one deep ball. I it was what it was. Like
Yeah, I saw it. Listen, I mean, he on the 3 pass attempts he had that he didn't look good. The deep ball, I got to go back and watch that one. I mean, he probably overthrew him just a little bit. I do think that the DB pushed Ballard off the route and may have grabbed him at the end. The 2 out patterns, one was complete, but it was high. The other one was off. It looked like Ballard maybe stopped running towards the sideline when he made his cut. But regardless, the amount of hate that I saw for a backup quarterback in a 52-6 game online was just mind-boggling to me. And here's my theory. We won 52-6. The final closing line was Ohio State by 48.5. I can't help but to think that a lot of the hate we saw online were people that had the Bucks minus 48.5.
Needed a field goal.
Well, just needed it. I mean, he got 2 drives, against Akron backup. So it's not and they let him take a shot, right? So it's not unreasonable to think that, but I can't help but to think that, but to the amount of hate that I saw online for a guy that had 3 pass attempts in a 52-6 game was just over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think people were.
And for those of you clamoring, get Julian in there. Listen, Julian is not ready. Julian is struggling with certain aspects of the game. Yes, Julian throws the prettiest ball, and he has the best ball placement. He has the best accuracy, but that's not what this offense is. So Julian is not ready.
It'd be interesting to see what happens this week. So we'll break down Western Michigan on Friday a little bit, Dan.
Now, caveat.
Go ahead.
If Ryan was looking for a reason to make Julian number 2,
he found it.
He may have found it.
Yeah. On rewatch, Dan, and that's what I texted you and Chuck. On rewatch, it looked like if Dev put a little more air under that deep shot, Ballard had 2 yards on the DB. It probably goes for 6.
Yeah.
The out route, I'll have to go rewatch that. I don't remember. I know that I remember the one where it was kind of behind him and Ballard made a nice grab.
He had to go up for it. It was a little high.
Yeah.
But I do think the last one where Ballard ran the out, which would have been a first down and extended that drive and possibly helped people cover their bet. I do think Jaden, when he made his cut, he didn't continue running through the pattern to the sideline because the ball was right on the sideline.
Sure.
And I can't help but to think that's where it was meant to be caught.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, you guys. Western Michigan on Saturday. Dan and I will be covering who they are, what they do. They're nicknamed the Broncos. They're from, I don't know if you know much about them, but they're from the state of Michigan. And oh, by the way, did you see Annie Aguilar's thing about the Big Ten? And she did the UCLA thing. We're in LA, and I don't know if you know much about us.
Yeah, she's sharp.
Oh my gosh, dude, that was so funny. I was laughing like out loud, and my wife was like, "What are you laughing about?" And I was like, "Just you had to be there." So, all right, guys, appreciate you guys. If you haven't seen that though, go watch it. It was funny. We'll be back on Friday. We're still doing our Blitz to 500. We'll be going live after the game on Saturday again for for our best damn recap show.
Is that to be determined since that's a late game?
Yeah, TBD. It'll be if it's after 11, I'll probably be doing this. So
yeah, I've got a 2-year-old sleeping at that point, and everybody else probably. It might be hard for us to do that on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Either way, guys, enjoy your week. Stay safe. As always,
go Bucks.